Republicans in Washington are determined to make President Obama a complete failure, and one of the best techniques has been to block his nominees to vital positions in government. They've even blocked nominees that they support just despite the president. Joining me now to talk about the problem is David Hersh. David, the nullification agenda we've heard about, you hear it in the press sometimes. How is nullification taking place? How is it that our government has come to a standstill, besides the obvious that you've got a bunch of wingnuts running the House of Representatives that simply I really don't think they have the intellect to do anything. But what's your take on how this nullification has taken place, how we can't move?
You know, Pap, it's amazing. We have what is being termed by scholars to be the new nullification. It's a process in the Congress where delay, the four corners, running the clock out, attempting to delay so that nothing gets done is the strategy that's being pursued. It's very much like the four corners in basketball that folks may be familiar with. Before there was a shot clock, all you had to do was consistently delay and delay and delay, and that way you could prevent the other team from doing anything. We're seeing partisan politics taken on at a new level here in our Congress. For example, at the present time, as of the end of May of this year, our president had 139 nominees who were pending on the Senate floor for confirmation. Now, we're talking about judicial nominees, executive nominees, nominees for administrative posts. In contrast, at this time, President Bush had a small fraction of that, less than 40. President Clinton had even less than that, less than 20. We see that of those that are executive branch or agency nominees, the people that really run the government, do the stuff that government needs to do, we have over 110 that has simply been pending, many of them for, on average, 9 months, and many of them for 2, 3 years, while the agencies come to a complete grinding halt and a standstill and nothing gets done.
Let me walk you back in time just a little bit. When we started seeing the gerrymandering taking place, where the Republicans, by way of Karl Rove strategy, said, listen, it doesn't really matter all that much what happens in Washington, as long as back here in our backyard, state by state, we can gerrymander to at least gain control of the House. Now, understand, once you're in control of the House, that's how you stop all of this. So what did they do? Every single Republican governor that was elected, 28 of them at one time, then it was ultimately 32, every one of them had a gerrymander plan. Now, they're being held unconstitutional in some places. Florida, for example, they said, no, that's not constitutional because they had gerrymander plans that looked like amoebas and, spaghetti, pieces of spaghetti. But the point is this, that's what they wanted to do. That was about nullification. You see, if you control the House and put these wingnuts in there, then you're able to nullify everything that's supposed to move ahead. Judges, appointments to the EPA, and that's exactly what this has come down to, isn't it?
It's exactly what it's come down to, and I think one of the most compelling analyses on this is if you look at the number of times that through the use of gerrymandering, through the use of this nullification process, there have been obstructionist tactics, the delays on voting for cloture, the process by which you finally get a nomination voted on, where you have cloture delays that last for months or years, and when the candidate is finally up for final approval, they get unanimous approval because no one's really opposed to them. 13 judges, for example, that have been gone finally to vote since November of last year, had cloture fights, delay fights, tactical delays, but when it came time to give a up or down, a yes or no on these people, everybody unanimously voted for them. So it's not a matter of there's something wrong with the person, there's something wrong with the nominee. It's a matter of we're going to delay at all costs, at all times, regardless of how it impacts government. And of course, then government grinds to a halt. Nothing happens.
David, we heard about the threat of the nuclear option, and then Harry Reid came out, and he was very good at negotiating the cloture rule, which says this: it says it no longer takes 60 votes to bring cloture, that you can do it with 51. Now, that was an important move, but he only did that where it came to certain appointments. It didn't even include appointments to the U.S. Supreme Court. It didn't include things like the the House Finance Agency, which is critical to having an appointment made there, or the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security. It didn't apply to that. There's so many places there were these big flaws in place. And now, isn't it time for Harry Reid to go back and say, you know what, Republicans, we know that you believe that you have hijacked government by gerrymandering the House of Representatives. So we're going to hijack your attempt to hijack by going forward with a nuclear option that's going to affect everything. Don't you think it's time for Harry Reid to do that right now?
I believe it's clearly time for us to do that, because we've got to get these public servants. And Pap, that is what they are. They're hired, they're elected to serve and to govern. It's time to get them out of a position of naysaying and saying no and running our government the way it needs to be run. We have agencies. The Election Assistance Commission, which both parties agree is essential to avoiding voter fraud.
Critical,
which has no board members and hasn't ever had any since it was approved because of these delays. We have Veterans Affairs, where we can't get executive directors. We have Housing and Urban Development, Education Department, NASA. We can't get executive directors in these places. It's not because these people aren't qualified. It's not because the work that needs to be done is not important. It's because the game plan is to nullify and say no. It's time, as you say, for the nuclear option. Let's blow this sucker up and make it work.
As you know, I'm not a big fan of either the Democrats or the Republicans. I'm an independent voter, have been for a very long time. But in this situation, I simply have to say it is the Republicans that have stopped government. And the reason it's clear that that's what's happened is that was their agenda. When Karl Rove said we have to win by gerrymandering, that's what he meant. We have to change policy in the country that is conservative, crazy nut policy by shutting down the government. And to do that, we have to go state by state and gerrymander all Democrats out to the benefit of only Republicans. And if we put the Republicans in the House of Representatives, they're going to stop all that. And short of a nuclear option, I don't see what else we're going to do here, David.
I don't see any other option. And the fact of the matter is, and it goes back, Pap, to the point I made earlier, which is that on the individuals who ultimately do get through the process, ultimately or get past cloture and they go to a vote, many, the vast majority of them, either are approved unanimously or by a supermajority, which means that it's not really about them. So the delay, the tactics that are used for this nullification is nothing more than expression of what Karl Rove and his minions have put in place through the Republicans to delay and to obfuscate and to prevent government from working as part of their tactics. And that's got to stop.
And it's killing democracy. David Hersh, thank you for joining me, okay?
Thanks, Pap.